It's hard work to think about standing in the tragic gap, not passively, but in a way that helps something happen there that's for the common good. And it's hard work to draw deep for those sources of courage in our own life and to embrace the fact that we both have courage and are called to courage. And so the question arises, where does one find nourishment and sustenance for that hard work? And I want to suggest that the Clearness Committee, or this way of holding each other on the shoulder, is one answer to that. Not the only answer, but one answer, and an answer that in my life and in the lives of a number of people I know has been a powerful one, a powerful source of nurture and sustenance. So let me turn to the schedule now and just walk through this process before we start digging into the depths of it. At 9:45, thereabouts, we're going to sit down in silence in these spaces in a small face-to-face circle, and the silence will be broken by the focus person when he or she is ready to begin. So right away, our job is to hold a quiet, centered, focused space without chit-chat. For several hours this morning, we are suspending the normal rules of social interaction, and we're going to do something very different for reasons I'll try to explain in a moment. From 9:45 to 10, the focus person will describe his or her issue while committee members listen without interruption. They may stop before 10 o'clock. They certainly won't go on much longer than that. And our job during that time is to listen. They will give us a clear signal when they are ready to start receiving questions. And then from 10 to 11:30, the rule is questions only. Committee members may not speak to the focus person in any way except to ask brief, honest, open questions. This is where we're going to do some work this morning about what is ruled out and what is ruled in, because our behavior during this time, our verbal behavior and our nonverbal behavior, is very important. It's the core and the heart of the process. Questions only, honest, open questions. I've never found an ironclad way to generalize about what an honest, open question is. Here's the closest I can come. An honest, open question is one you ask without possibly being able to sit there and think, I know the right answer or the best answer to this question, and I sure hope you give it to me. If there's any energy like that and you sit on the question, don't ask it. But an honest, open question is one you ask without possibly being able to imagine what the, quote, right answer is. So let me give you a couple of examples. If I ask, if I'm a member of the committee and I ask the focus person, the situation you just described, how did you feel about that? That's a good, honest, open question. Allows that person to name some emotions. But if I listen to that list of emotions and I notice that anger is missing, and I'm saying to myself, boy, if I'd been in that situation, I would have felt angry. And then I ask the question, what about anger? That's not a good, honest, open question. Now that's a level of subtlety that's hard to attend to. But what I've done in effect, given where that question came from, is I might as well have said, you know, if I'd been there, I'd have felt angry. Why didn't you? And that's invasive. And you don't want to do that. You must not do that. I said to the focus people last night, everybody in this circle is going to be trying very hard to keep the rules. And sometimes we're going to screw up. And we can forgive each other for that. But I also said to them, If anything happens in this circle that does not serve your soul, you, the focus person, are at liberty to say, it doesn't feel like an honest, open question to me, or things are moving too fast here, or I'm being pressed in an area that I don't want to explore. And if the focus person says that, the person to whom they say it is not at liberty to defend herself or himself or to explain herself or himself. Because again, that's to invade the space with your agenda. Oh, I said that because you said this and I thought that and therefore, or please forgive me or nothing. Your only option is to listen to that, to sit back and try to re-enter the process later in a more helpful way. That's the only option you have. The pacing of the questions is important. It's not a grilling or a cross-examination. So let there be spaces between questions and responses. And the focus person may ask us to slow it down if it's moving too quickly for him or her. If you find yourself asking a question, you may well feel a need for a follow-up question, and that's fine. But if you find yourself about to ask the third question in a row before someone else has asked a question, you're probably getting into trouble. Take that as a boundary marker and pull back. Open up that space. Mirroring can be a very valuable moment in this process. You've sat and listened deeply to this person for an hour and 3/4, hour and a half. And yet it's also that slippery slope where we might slide back towards trying to advise, fix, save, set someone straight. And so if you can remember during this time that you serve this person best by being a literal mirror, and I will illustrate what I mean. If you say to the focus person, when you were asked this question, this is how you answered, period, amen. I simply invite you to look at that as the subtext, the implicit message. You don't say why you think that's important. You obviously think it's important, but you don't tell them why. You don't do anything except hold up a mirror that reminds them of a question that was asked and an answer that was given. There's a second kind of mirroring where you say, I invite you to look at 3 questions and 3 answers simultaneously. You obviously have a theory about why those hang together in some way, but you are not to say what that theory is. You are simply to mirror that these 3 questions were asked and these 3 answers were given. And you let the focus person make of that whatever he or she wants to make of it. Constantly the effort here is to withdraw our own desire to shape this process or to interpret what's going on or to import our own wisdom and simply to let the person get a clear bead on the inner teacher, on their own inner wisdom. Body language mirroring can be very valuable. It's even trickier. It's harder to do. You have to be a phenomenologist to do it. Good mirroring would say, when you were asked about job A, your voice grew soft and your eyes were downcast. When you were asked about job B, your head was erect and your voice was loud. You'll notice what I didn't do there. I didn't say, when you were asked about job A, you seemed subdued and depressed. When you were asked about job B, you seemed enthusiastic and excited. Don't you think it's job B? Why don't you go sign up right now? Because the point being that even though I think I know, I have no idea what those downcast eyes and that soft voice really mean. Quite the contrary, it may not be depression. It may be, this is the most serious possibility I've looked at for a long time, and I'm considering it deeply. I can't get inside another person and interpret them. And my job here is to remember that and to not invade this person's soul, this person's inner space. And so if the focus person invites mirroring, those are the disciplines we need to practice, and it can be enormously valuable in that last 15 minutes to help a person regather things that have come from within herself or himself, and simply have a chance to look at them again before the group disbands. With 5 minutes left, someone is going to say, we now invite affirmations and celebrations, and I'll tell you what I told the focus persons last night. In the dozens and dozens, maybe over 100 by now, Clearness committees I've done, I have never known those affirmations and celebrations to be gratuitous or forced. They've always been authentic and deeply felt. It's simply an enormous privilege to be in the presence of another person's soul. And 2 hours later, you will feel that privilege and you will feel the mystery of the human self, and you will want to celebrate the shared journey and this person who has given you the gift of a piece of his or her life. And because we value that gift and this offering that these three people are making to us so deeply, we will abide faithfully by the rule of double confidentiality, which means A, nothing said by the focus person in this group or any of the questions asked will ever be repeated to another soul, even if that person was in the group. Group members will not talk about this when it's over. Our job when it's over is to continue to hold the focus person in our thoughts and the light in whatever way you hold people. And secondly, the second part of double confidentiality is that none of us is at liberty after the Clearness Committee to come up to the person a day later, a week later, a month later and say, you remember when you said this? I had a thought about that. We hold this sacred space forever, henceforth and evermore. We do not later invade the focus person with our fixes, counsels, and advices. And focus people have said time and again, that second part of the confidentiality rule liberated me to do what I needed to be doing here, which is to have the deepest possible conversation with myself, knowing that it will stop there. And if one of them wants to come to us and say, would you sit and talk with me, they're at liberty to do that. We're not at liberty to approach them. Your job as members of the committee this morning is to create a space that is to be occupied by the focus person and the focus person alone for 2 hours. If you can remember to keep yourself out of that space, both in a verbal way and in an energetic way. But right now I'm leaning into this space, right? My energetics are taking me to the middle of this because I've got a message I'm trying to convey. If I'm a member of a committee this morning, I need to lean back, breathe deep, not lean in, and simply hold the space for this person to occupy herself or himself without me being in there. And this has all kinds of practical implications. If the focus person starts to cry, I'm likely to do that this morning because I'm going to be dealing with some stuff that touches my emotional life pretty deeply. Members of my committee are not at liberty to comfort me. They're not at liberty to move into that space with a Kleenex or a hand on the arm that says, all will be well. Because as soon as they do that, they have occupied my space and they have changed this from my dialogue with my inner teacher to a social relationship with them, in which I now have to worry about what they're thinking about my condition and making them feel like they're good caregivers. And this is exactly what needs not to happen. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. I need a space in which I can sit there and ask myself, what are those tears really about? And maybe some caring person in the circle will ask that as an honest, open question. Where do you think those tears are coming from? That's a fair question. But comforting me, or trying to help me get rid of those tears, or being embarrassed on my behalf about the tears is not serving me well in this situation. So always keeping yourself out of the space, leaning back, and yet being fully attentive, just with your intentionality being to support me in my inner dialogue. I may get off a good joke. You're certainly free to smile gently. You are not free to join me in raucous laughter. It's been pointed out to me more than once that I'm always the first person to laugh at my jokes, and sometimes the only person. In this setting, you don't join me in laughter because I need a chance to ask myself, am I using my sense of humor to blow off an issue that's really kind of painful to me? I do that sometimes. And this 2-hour period is an opportunity to reflect on that. But that opportunity is taken from me if you join me in laughter and turn this into a social occasion. So you're holding the space with a simple intentionality, a simple focus, a simple attentiveness, a remembering that it's my inner teacher that counts. You aren't going like this, which is inattentive and disrespectful, nor are you leaning in. You are neither invading nor evading. You are simply holding me present in intentionality that I might have a dialogue with my inner teacher. Now, there's one other thing that in this regard, before I get to the questions, that I talked with the focus people about last night. You have been doing something in the 15 minutes we've been together so far that's helpful to me under these circumstances. You've been nodding when you get it. You've been looking puzzled when you don't get it. You've been giving me clues about what I have to say more about or what I've said enough about. Under these circumstances, that's helpful. But in a Clearness committee, these nonverbal signals that we give each other are radically unhelpful because they turn it back into a conventional social situation where my job, and I'm going to be a focus person this morning, subtly becomes persuading you that I'm on the right track so that I get you going like this rather than like this, right? And that's hard stuff to break. It's very hard for you as members of the committee when you hear my problem and I'm struggling with something not to look sympathetic and to nod and to smile and to encourage me. But in doing so, you may be leading me down the worst goat trail of my life and depriving me of a chance to find my own path. How do you deal with that? Simple. I've said to the focus people, you are at liberty to close your eyes for the full 2 hours, to hear those questions with your eyes closed, to respond to them with your eyes closed. If that's not comfortable, you can look at the center of the circle while you hear the questions and answer the questions. Or you can look at the ceiling or out the window. Members of the committee are to hold this person in steady attention, but the focus person is to disengage from us as much as possible so that the focus person is really having a conversation with herself or himself. This is very countercultural. This is what you call rude under normal circumstances. But in these circumstances, it's the only thing that works. And I will tell you exactly, it came to me in a Clearness committee several years ago, the power of this for me as a focus person. The power is that at some point in this process this morning, I will be asked a question that will take me to a place of truth that I don't want to talk about. And yet, but if my eyes are closed and I have gotten the message inwardly that this is not about persuading anybody of anything, of seeking approval or being worried about disapproval, I will be sitting there thinking, the only person I have to fool here is myself, and why would I want to do that? And I will therefore be encouraged to answer honestly. Just a final image or two. There's so many images that have helped me try to serve other people well in this process. And one of them, frankly, is the image of sitting at the bedside of a dying person. I know that sounds a little odd, but there's a powerful parallel here. I've done that a time or two, and I've learned two things that I hope to remember. One is that in this moment I realize, maybe for the first time in a while, that I don't have a fix for this problem. And my job is not to fix this person up, but is to bear witness, to be fully present, to offer love and compassion in a quiet, holding way. So I'm not to invade, because I can't do anything in there. I can just hold them in my presence. And at the same time, I learned not to evade. That the most disrespectful thing would be to run from the room because what I'm looking at is too problematic, or too struggling, or too difficult to want to bear. But I'm going to keep my eyes on them. I'm going to hold them in my attention, because it would be disrespectful not to. So maybe for some of us, remembering that this is like sitting at the bedside of a dying person where you neither invade nor evade could be a helpful image. But the image I always like to close with is this very simple one, that for the next 2 hours we're going to be doing something that is very much like holding a small bird in our open hands, our open minds, our open hearts. And during those 2 hours we're going to face at least 3 temptations. One is that in the first 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, the hands start to close around that bird, and we want to pluck the feathers and sort of do this dissecting thing we do with our minds, analyze this person to pieces, try to figure out what the heck is going on here, and why don't they see what I see? That's the way the mind works. And we are to resist that temptation. Our task is simply to keep our hands open and hold the bird. We're not going to do dissecting with our minds this morning, and if we don't do it with our minds, we won't do it with our mouths. The second temptation that comes after an hour or two, and we're past that dissecting thing, we're now sort of into the mystery of another life that is being shared at a deep level. And we've come into that more respectful, receptive mode, is that the hands are going to get weary, and we're going to want to lay this down for a while. That means the attention wanders, the intentionality disappears. And I just want to say to us, a bird is a very light thing to hold. A soul is even lighter, and we can do this for 2 hours. We have enough upper body strength to do that for 2 hours. All we have to do is pay attention to it. And the third and final temptation comes maybe toward the end, which is sort of like this. Please, fly. I mean, show us that you've solved your problem. Put all this time and energy into you. And we need to remember that this bird will fly on its own schedule. And that the fruit of our work this morning, the proof that we have done this well, is not that the bird flies, but that we can say we faithfully held for 2 hours. And when the 2 hours are over, those hands can withdraw into the heart, and we can hold that person for a long, long time to come. That's all we're asked to do. to be faithful to the holding of the space where this person can have a conversation about something important with him or herself.